And finally, after at about 12:30, we'll have the panel where Philippe COVAL will join us and we'll discuss basically all those different points, the question you will raise during the different presentation before. So thank you so much. Do get in touch, do get involved, do ask questions, do participate, share on Twitter. I do think VR for a Cause is really the best way to use the medium, and it's also one of the most creative ways. There are so many challenges in VR and AR in itself, but also doing it the right way and for good, and makes it even more worthwhile. And it's so exciting. So thank you so much, and have fun during the day. Bye-bye.
Hello, everyone. So my name is Yann TOULLEC. I am the co-founder of VR Connection, who is a groupement of economic interest in France. And I also co-founded an ethics committee in order to prevent and to inform about the good behavior about building a VR experiment. So, sorry, I just have to. Yeah, so just a quick reminder about the ethics committee. So the VR ethics committee is an independent think tank that we create in 2018 around ethical conduct in immersive technology. Basically, we try to be surrounded by a lot of experts in very different domains of psychiatrists, neuropsychologists, researcher, immersion expert, content producer, and large company who are basically the one who express the need about VR and then for the next few years. So it was set up with Franck Rougeau, who is also a co-founder of VR Connection, who VR Connection is the French immersive industry representative in France. So the mission for us was, first thing, to publish a recommendation white paper towards the content producer and the professional users. This white paper that I'm gonna detail more after was our first achievement in order to make some rule, try to make some rule, like Asimov do it for robotic, we try to put it for VR. The second thing was to create an evaluation scale of the impact of VR experiment on consumer. So basically, we can compare this evaluation scale to what was made for video games with the rating. And second thing is on dedicated VR experiments, we can be asked in order to give an advice on which experiment regarding to the educative goal that some company want to put in place. So more about the charter of recommendations. The statement is obviously VR is the most immersive media today, and the most use case are training and healthcare. VR is already used for phobia treatment and healthcare, so it's due to this ability to change behavior and impact cognition. So the statement is VR can make some change on our habit, on our behavior, on our cognitive state. So we have to prevent all the bad use or the unknown about this because it can be risky at some point. The context. Obviously, this technology received a strong business enthusiasm is because you get a really productively efficiencies. And we can observe right away, even into 4 years ago, the first undesirable effect with because it's probably no. So the first one was the headache, we can be sick, etc. But if we dig a little bit forward, we can find that there is really more scary, not scary, more dangerous effects. Like if we accept that we can treat phobia in VR, we can also accept that we can create phobia on someone else. So there is already few existing recommendations coming from NANSES plant, who is coming at the end of 2020. The process was 18 months, like I said before, of collective work with all the other professionals that we're working with. And the result is a charter of 22 operational recommendations for sponsor users and producers that you can download on the link on the site VR connection if you want to go forward. Right now it's not in English, sorry for that, but it's gonna be in English in the next few weeks. So in order to explain you what's inside the charter, we decide to split it in 5 main topics for us who are like the main topic that someone who don't know VR have to taken as an account for building a proper and a safe VR experiment. So the first one is sensorimental discrepancies. So in order to explain that, sensorimental discrepancies, it's all the discrepancies who make at any time with any headset, and even with the highest quality headset, is all the differences that we got between our real world and the virtual world. Like the period of latency of an headset is a sensorimental discrepancies, and it can happen all the time. So there is 5 major of these that we have to take into account, with more related to the human and our ability to project ourselves into VR and into the technology. Second one is cognitive inconsistency. So this one is mainly about us as a human, as a body, to be in a virtual world. So for an example, like the flash move or the teleportation that we all know and already test, can be for some people something was really not natural and even scary for them. So it's something we have to take into account. The third one, who is the more specific one, is the discomfort caused by the content. So it's not about the narrative, it's all about the little trigger that you can use when you try to achieve some point in information or in sensibilization or something, or even in gaming. You're building and content, and you have to take care of what point of view are you using, what is the distance with every other human being in VR that you have to keep, etc. So it's not recommendation that you have to do this or not doing this. It's if you want to achieve something really stressful or something really peaceful, you have to be aware of this trigger in order to make the more efficient content you can have. The fourth one is psychological state and cognition. So it's basically all the things that you can experiment during your VR trip, and that can have an effect on your real personality. Like you can learn in VR and you remember it when you're outside of VR. So you have to, so there is recommendation in order to control this aspect, that all your experiment in VR at a certain point can be something you keep and you learn and you keep with you, like phobia. And the fifth one, sorry, is all the practicalities and an experiment for professional setting. So it's mainly dedicated to all the people in big company or in company who say, okay, I would like to use VR for this point, but I don't know how to do it properly and safely in a work context, for example. In this case, they have to follow like a guideline, to say, okay, if you want to be safe, you have to get an introduction and then maybe to have a brief before you go through the experiment and different level of immersion, maybe, etc., etc. So the next step for our committee is prevent misuses of the VR technology with recommendation, increase the adoption of technology with safe and pleasant experiment for each and everyone, and more particularly in the formation for a big company who want to make VR, but who have to be sure that it's safe for their employee, even if they spend a lot of time in this. So this is one of our main concerns. And the third one is inform the public of the potential impact of VR experiments in preparation for a mass market that we all waiting for, I know. So this is the contact and questions if you want to ask me or to ask to get the committee charge date. And please stay home and stay safe during this time. I don't know if we give time for question.
Yes, let me check the timing. We've got, yes, we got, yeah, we usually it's like 5 minutes of questions, so you can, yeah. Next speaker is Fabien again, so that's like 2 or 3 questions from the audience and on the chat.
Okay.
If I'm supposed to start now, I need at least a minute.
Sorry?
Am I supposed to start now already?
No.
If you want.
No, your presentation is planned at 11:20. If you started earlier, people are going to miss the start of your presentation. So,
what do you recommend that we wait a bit, or?
I think right now we can use the time now, whether to take questions already.
Sure.
Then, if you want to focus on any topics, feel free.
Wow. Okay.
Really, as you prefer. Yeah, I see there is one question, but I'm not sure how to answer that. I think it's Jim Bauer who is asking the question.
Yes, I'll turn my mic on. So,
Hi.
It's 2 o'clock in the morning in Oregon, so I'm a little tired, but so I run a world with 8 million children in it. How much do you or have you thought about community management issues, which turn out to be very important to virtual reality? And how much is your considering ways to think about how communities should and can be managed within VR?
Sorry, I didn't heard what you're asking about management issues.
Yes, I'm talking about community management.
Okay.
So how within a community, what sort of tools are available or ways that communities should and can be managed? Community behavior.
What community are you talking about?
Well, any VR community, as you know, in Second Life for many years, there are concerns about behavior. I'm wondering if that's something that you consider.
Actually, the behavior in the VR is, for me, more a legal question of that there is nothing. It's really a gap in the French and European legislation. Is what can happening in Second Life or VR community, who is responsible for what. So it's obviously a next step for us in order to know where is going to be the responsibility during the VR community, what's happening in this. But for now, it's not for me health or a preventive thing. It has to be legalized.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you got other questions in chat, like Yvonne Bensasson. What if the chatter was accessible directly? I mean, online, I think. It's a woman.
Yeah. Yeah, I see a question of Alexis Oliveri. Can you give another example of the risk of VR beside of phobia. Actually, there is a lot, because you can, if you are sensible to I don't know the word in English, but to keep your balance, etc. VR can really damage if you get really sensible to this. VR and some experiment can continue to damage your ability to balance your body and to keep your line. I don't know if it's clear. And to Yvonne Ben-Savon, yeah, the charter is accessible to a VR connection website.
Then there's a question of
Yeah. Experience are so real. What do you think the ethical and moral concern development should have? But that's the same question for me that Florent Godard is asking. Is for now, it's if someone, okay, we all get an avatar now in this VR world. So if we stay a long time with this avatar, it's going to be some other part of us. So if at some point in this VR my avatar is getting robbed or getting killed, I will suffer, because I will have to put time and energy in order for this avatar to get real and to get my emotion and what I want to be in this VR. So if it's happening, who is responsible? The one who is killing me, the guys who code the fact that I can be killed, or the game editor who say, okay, in this VR world, we are allowed to take that. So for me, if we want to prevent all this, legally, first step is, if we come to a VR world, you have to accept a chart that you know that in this VR world you can be killed, robbed, etc., in order to know that what you're exposed to in this alternative reality.
Very good. You get other questions like from Natalia Vikarnova. What's the minimum age for using VR? Interesting question.
Actually, right now, as I say during the presentation, there is a French committee from the government who is going, at the end of 2020, going to give some answer, because they make a long study about that. But right now, we said that it's 12 years old. First thing, but why 12? First thing, 12 years old is the moment your eyes are mature in your development. So you don't have any risk in keeping you exposed to VR and to a screen really close. So it's just for safe. And second thing is, for a young child who is living VR for the first time, he didn't get the back experiment that we all have right now around 20 and after. So if he sees for the first time a big back shark as a stunning experiment, he's gonna hate and be scared about shark all his life, because his first experiment he didn't have the knowledge in order to make the difference between real and VR and say, okay, it's VR, it's not real. For him, it's a first experiment with a shark, so he's gonna be scared for life. So we recommend for now that if we exposed child to VR, it has to be in a really child dedicated experiment. But the others could be for him some damage, because he didn't have the ability to get a distance between reality and VR. And it's the same thing for really old people who didn't get the access and the use that we have with the technology. So child and old people are the same with that. They take everything as real and concrete. And for Claude, no, for now there is no lawyer really specific in VR. I am personally trying to get into this. I already tried for 1 year to make things move on this point, and I'm continuing to do that.
Question, I think there is Dana Banaku.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be think it's going to be the same way for now. When you say general consumption, I think it's going to be the same way for esports. Right now, it's going to be from every editor of virtual world to decide what law is going to be inside. And in the long term, it may have a regulation from the government, but for now, I think it's going to be of the responsibility of everyone who is building an alternative reality. And yeah, I totally agree with Nicolas Ribert. Alain Bensoussan, avocat, is one of the closest to work on this technology. I don't think it's going to be rated like, rated like cinema film, but I think it has to be like a PEGI. And it's also one of the things we try to do with the ethics committee is to get a signature for every content. We say, okay, this is A content, B content, C content, and maybe at some point for everyone to know, okay, so physically and sensorimotorically, I don't know, A or B or C, so I know what kind of content I'm more sensible, etc., in order to be able to choose what I want to live in VR. And yes, obviously it has to be different from a PEGI, because PEGI is declarative and it's based on there is I don't know, sexual content or drugs or violence, etc. But in VR, as we just show in the presentation, there is way more criteria. There is this one obviously, but there is way more criteria to develop.
Okay. There are any last questions?
I think that's it.
Okay then.
How can we become members? Please take my my coordinate and let's chat. Well, with pleasure. And obviously, you can ask to anyone in the Laval virtual, because they get access to the presentation and to the chatter. All right. Thank you, guys. Have a lovely day. Thank you for your time. Bye.
Thank you so much, Yann. Thanks so much for your presentation. Fabien, it's up to you now, because you'll be the one next.
Sure. So I'm uploading the slides. And to double check the schedule, okay, I'm supposed to start in 3 minutes.
Yes, we're on schedule.
Super, never doubt it. Shouldn't say this before because there might be some last-second technical issues, of course.
You may need to re-upload your presentation.
Still uploading, a bit of suspense. Okay, super. Can everybody hear me and see the slides? If you can wave or shake or dance or whatever you want to do, do something. Yes, super. Thank you so much. So we'll just have 3 more minutes. If you want also to stretch your physical legs, your hip legs. Feel free to do that. Grab some water, chat around, and we'll start in a few minutes. Thank you. If it gives me a minute to tweet so that other people can join in.
You can even do a selfie if you want, Fabien, with the audience.
Wow, that would be cool. But let's not make everything explode. How do I do this? That's an idea. Alors, suppose I need to turn back. And a selfie. Okay, okay. Change it, radar. Help me there because I have no clue. I mean, I can take a screenshot. Is that what you mean?
Yes, yes.
Ah, yeah, this I did.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, thanks. Okay, one more minute. Okay, shall we start then? Can you still all hear me and see the slides? If you want to wave or raise or dance, yes, clap. Thank you so much. So I'll present you UNICEF and WebXR to democratize VR and AR content. Actually, the title is not complete enough, but that's fine. I'm sorry for people who were there during the introduction, but I have to be polite. I need to introduce myself again. I could pick a random member of the audience and ask those questions, but let's not do that. So I work at the European Parliament. The European Parliament is based in Brussels. It's a supranational institute. It's a political body, but elected by citizens of the European Union. And in there, I work for the Innovation Service. So the Innovation Service has two missions. The number one mission is to try new tools. For example, I don't know, spatial on Magic Leap 1. For example, Virbela here today with you. For example, the HoloLens 2 and WebXR on it. But also drones, IoT, machine learning, all that. So I spend 3 days per week there to discover those tools and to help in terms of regulation so that they can be tried. And then 1 day per week, I work for UNICEF as a WebXR technical advisor. I'll clarify a bit what that means during the next slides. And then, because I think VR and AR are extremely exciting technologies, they should not remain black boxes. You shouldn't put a big chunk of plastic on your head and have no idea how it works. And I think Mozilla is doing an amazing job in terms of innovation, but also doing it open source and doing it for the users first, so that we can tweak around and we can basically use the medium in a way that we believe is the right way. And then I also tried to co-found a startup. I mean, I did manage, but then I had to give up after a little while. But I was the CEO of Lucid Web, 360 VR video streaming company. I will invite you, if you're in a developing country and if your mission is aligned with UNICEF mission, to submit your startup to the fund. I'll clarify a little bit But it's part of the UNICEF Office in Innovation based in New York. So the Office of Innovation is trying everything that might seem a little bit too advanced for traditional UNICEF. And that means innovating or helping others rather to innovate. So initially there were still programs that aim to help with innovation on the ground directly through UNICEF, for example, doing delivery of vaccine using drones in rural areas. But another way to do this is to do it indirectly and helping startups, local startups, to do this. So local startups will be for-profit companies, and they will have, because it's innovation, because it's emerging technology, it will be quite challenging to get there, because you need to basically bridge the gap between your idea, your concept, to the actual value you want to provide, and that means usually upfront money to pay for skills that are rare, that are difficult to get. And the innovation fund is basically, it's a crazy bet. It's saying, wow, is this possible? We're not sure. We're pretty sure it could be, but we know there is a big risk, but we're ready to take that risk for you. It's about $20 million. You can see on the slide, you can see on the UNICEF Innovation website for details. And it's about it's precisely actually $100,000 per startup. Like I already briefly mentioned, the focus is on frontier tech areas or emerging technology. Of course, VR and AR, that's why we're here today at Laval Virtual, but also machine learning, 3D printing, drones, IoT, AI, quantum computing, blockchain and crypto. But anything that is basically new is going to be checked, analyzed. But the value here, or the crazy bet again, is to say, those are not just buzzwords. Like it's a buzzword maybe, but there is huge potential behind it. And the potential is to help millions, if not billions of people and children first. But also there is a market for this. There is a market to help. There is the summary of it is basically the intersection between 1 billion+ person needs and 100 billion industries. This is where we believe there is a huge opportunity. So in practice, it's $100,000. We don't take equity, so it means your startup remains your startup. You benefit from the communication of UNICEF, meaning the big brand. I don't even ask who in the room knows UNICEF. I assume just everybody knows about it, but also local networks. So UNICEF has country offices in 100+ countries, and it means not just an office, but it means connection, political connection, connection at the education board of the country, knowing local investors, knowing international investors. So this is what we can provide. And there is then the annoying part, which is me. So this is when I use my virtual avatar to wave, if I know how to do this right. So the annoying part is me, which is at least once a month, I'll be spending a few hours with your startup to say, well, this is cool, but you didn't follow this. What about this? Have you tried that? Basically, I'm trying to be not just annoying, but actually helpful. And it means poking around about what you've been doing and how I can help better. And that also includes workshops, either on-site or now, obviously, that will be more remote. The criteria, I'm going to just list them then, but I'm going to detail bit by bit. So emerging tech, if you're doing something that's been done for 20 years, chances are that's going to be challenging. Based in a country with the UNICEF office, so I already had some chat with you, a couple of you before, either today or right now in Verbella chat room, and it's only for developing countries. So meaning some of you are doing amazing work based in the US, based in Europe, in Brussels, and all that is great. But this is not what the fund is for. The fund is to say you're in Indonesia and you're helping a school there to get new, more exciting materials. And there we can help. Of course, we want to support already your work if you're helping children worldwide based in the US, but it's not going to be through the fund. We have other tools for this. You need to have an existing prototype. You need to be a for-profit company, and you need to be ready to open source. So, like I said, what we bet on is innovation, but innovation is challenging. At the very beginning, you're not going to make money, you're not going to make an impact, you're going to just try to see if it works at all and if you have the skills to actually implement your crazy idea. And this is where, I don't know if you can see my the mouse there, but it's the bottom of the curve at the very early stage. This is difficult, this is challenging, but we believe we have the skills to help and also the funding to do that, to kickstart the process, basically. This is the map of the different submissions we received about 2 years ago. And we crop Canada and the US. Well, Europe is just there on the center, but it's not, you cannot apply from there, and Japan and Korea is not there. So it's every other country there. And we don't want castles in the sky. So this is from La Puta beautiful animated movie. It's we want to help you dream, but you want something that we know you can build. It's not going to be if you just have a PowerPoint that say, hey, I can make the Eiffel Tower on Mars. That's not going to be enough. You need to show us that you and your team, doesn't have to be just you as an individual, obviously. You can find the resources around, but that you can actually build it. We don't want an amazing presentation that just creates frustration, basically. And it's quite different from other tools in terms of bringing impact. Is we're not investing in non-profit. You need to want to make money so that you can make your project sustainable economically over time and that the impact spread in your local community. Of course, self-sufficiency is a little bit of a dream, but this is what we aim for in terms of economical impact. So that's we invest 100K for 1 year, and after this, we're going to find bridge investment with other international investors, local investors. Can also be institutions, can be some funds from the European Union even, can be something like this. But at some point, I'm going to harass you, let's say at the end of the month, I say, okay, did you find any user? Is this user a potential, is it a lead, is it a client, or they're paying for it? So we're going to push for this because we believe this is one of the most efficient way to spread the impact. One thing that I was really excited about 2 or 3 years, so actually, wow, that was 4 years ago, time flies. No, that was 2 years ago. The report is from 4 years ago. But so 2 years ago, I was in New York for one of the first UNICEF Innovation Fund workshop, and then I discovered how much reliance there was on open source, but also how much there was a desire to keep open source as a strategical tool. So we invest on startups, but startups might fail. And I'm saying this, it's an euphemism. Most startups will fail, or at least not fulfill the promises that were initially jolt down on the business model to get the investment money, which is very fine. That's okay. That's normal in the ecosystem. But it means if we take that risk and we don't take equity, then we need something out of it that is going to help everybody, basically. And we believe this is open source. We believe that actually anything we do must be shared and beyond just the process, the code itself. So it doesn't mean if you're an established startup or company, rather, you will have to open source everything you've done so far. But it means the money we invest in is going to have an impact regardless of your own success. And we believe open source is the right way to do this, but it doesn't mean not making money. Like there is no conflict between being a startup, being a for-profit, and doing open source. So for this, we have mentors who had startups before or who are already mentoring startups that rely on open source and still make money. So regarding the open source, and I mentioned at the very beginning, I'm also a Mozilla tech speaker and contribute to Mozilla. The goal is VONEO should not be just for the Valve index using some very complex stack. It can also be right here, right now on any kind of software, any kind of hardware. And we believe the web is the platform. The web is the platform, meaning that if actually my slides there are on the web, a lot of the tool Verbilla is relying on the web, and Verbilla even is doing a web platform so that we don't have to download. I think none of us really enjoyed downloading 500 megabytes and waiting for it. We want to link it and just jump in. And this is what WebXR is providing. It works across platform and you can work right away. Plus, as you can also see from the slide, in the browser window, you can also teach the code. So you can actually tinker around and learn from it. And this learning aspect, because we want to share the impact and the tools, is such a big difference. We want to be able to say, hey, we made this amazing experience, go to a workshop in Ghana and say, well, you can build it too, and you can build on top of it. It also not just for VR. Before I showed Mozilla Hubs, which is for social VR, but you can also do it for AR. So we can see some mapping of the face of Blair McIntyre, professor at Georgia Tech, doing research at Mozilla. Some surface mapping we can see from the room, and all that again from the browser. So what browsers, you ask? Well, pretty much all of them, meaning Chrome is since December supporting WebXR first version of the specification. Firefox has been doing it first, 1 year ago, I would say at least. Safari is Apple, and Apple does it their own way. So soon they're in part of the WFC working group for the specification. Edge does it, so you can use WebVR content on Microsoft Windows mixed reality headsets. And then you have a new browser, for example, the Magically ML1, you have the also experimental Exocad browser. If you buy today an Oculus Quest, I don't know how many of you try this, but if you go to the shop and buy an Oculus Quest, you have a browser from the get-go. Meaning that you can go on, let's say, a Mozilla Hub page right away after buying. You don't need to install anything. You just get a link, open it, or you just even use a code, and that's it. So in terms of democratization of both creating content and sharing it, the value is huge. But like I said, for democratization, it has to work everywhere. And this is what progressive WebXR, or just doing in WebXR right, as I like to think about it, is it means it works across platform, meaning you don't have a VR headset. That's annoying. And of course, you're not going to have the full-blown experience, but you're going to have something. You're going to have something that works on desktop, on tablet, on laptop, but also on VR, on AR. So this is one of the ways to do it. Since I saw a quick question on the chat, so Unity doesn't support exporting to WebXR in itself, but there is actually a Mozilla WebXR exporter, so you can do this. I recommend to tinker with it, but using exporter, of course, you're not doing for that target platform first. So if you want to do progressive WebXR, for example, then the Unity exporter is not going to be the nicest way to do it, but it works. So in terms of the criteria, I will actually show a few examples of what we did with the UNICEF Innovation Fund. We helped to fund Vivos VR from IDSS. It's a startup from Turkey, and they are helping with children that unfortunately were just couldn't leave home. Basically, they were bitten by, there are a lot of wild dogs in Turkey, and you get bitten once and you don't want to go out anymore, which is not fun. And we all know that it's not fun, but it's nowhere near as bad as when you have to go to school and then you can't learn anymore. So it's okay when you know about it, when you can prepare around it, like we're doing now in the pandemic. But when it's just a fear that is irrational and prevents you from learning, then it becomes a problem. So they use basically VR to gradually insert them back to a state of calm and rational fear if need be, and using also some physiological measurements. We also help fund MEC3D based in Lagos in Nigeria, focusing on bringing VR for education in school. And there was a photo I took when I was there in the Jibohu High School, teaching basic science. It's really exciting to see all the headsets getting there, and that they're actually, you can see that they're already shipping in the classroom now. Vedev in India is also doing this and relying on WebVR to democratize the content. They were focusing. They initially started because there was a question on the Unity exporter. They started on this path about a year ago, and then they transitioned to just doing WebXR from the start. I don't have the quote, but I had the last meeting with the CTO of Vedev about a month ago, and he was just, he said we couldn't have done this without WebXR. In terms of efficiency of building the content and delivery. So that was extremely exciting for me, because he was skeptical about it. And when we started to work together on me helping this project a bit more than a year ago, he's like, yeah, I don't know, this is not ready yet and everything. And now for him to say this, that was warming my heart. We helped with a Nubian VR in Ghana, so I was there giving a workshop, and you can actually even see the code on the screen on the bottom left. And we can give a workshop, we can start a workshop pretty much anywhere. And yes, it's based on the web, so you might think, oh, I need reliable internet. Well, ideally you do, but even if you don't, then again, using progressive WebXR and using PWA, progressive web app, then you can have your content, your web content downloaded on the local machine. So you can already do all this, even if you don't have internet. Of course, you need one first access, but in terms of deployment and make it reliable, it works really well. We have with UNICEF Studio in Chile. They were basically doing a little storytelling VR experience where you basically get questions about the story. And then the questions, everything is in text, which is a little bit counterintuitive to do text in VR, but for this specific context on improving reading skills, then it works really well, and they do gorgeous content. So a little summary, what do we do? So we give $100,000, we don't take any equity, we benefit for the communication of UNICEF, of the local network of UNICEF in terms of reaching the schools, of political contacts and all this. Even sometimes, for example, in Ghana now, we have a kind of incubator, a physical space in the UNICEF offices to bring entrepreneurs and their project and help them directly day to day. I think it's very valuable. There was a question on the previous presentation about the expected impact and how to handle trauma with children. This is not something I can help with. This is not my expertise. I'm a WebXR technical advisor, but this is where UNICEF, for example, can help by putting in touch with the right pedagogical specialists, childcare specialists. They're going to be able to help. So this is the whole infrastructure, let's say, or support we can provide. So thank you so much. If you don't have a startup yet, or if you know a startup that could, or if you want to apply, do get in touch. This is my Twitter handle. You can, of course, chat with me right now, and I will open for questions. So please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you. Don't be shy. So I will repeat the questions that I see on the chat. And I think if you can ask on the chat, that's great, because I can actually, there is no audio problem. So how can we maintain the open source idea while using a closed platform like Oculus? Well, that's a great question. I think it's a little bit also what I was showing. I'll put back that slide over there. If I can go back all the way there. No. So there is, and I mentioned it actually, I know it was on my previous, sorry, that was at my 10 a.m. introduction about efficient altruism and doing VR for a cause. Well, you have to decide basically, do you want to use the Oculus platform? The Oculus platform is not open source. It's for a for-profit company that has a certain business model. And yet, in terms of user experience, I think the Quest, for example, is a huge success. I mean, it really works well. But it's not all open source. You can try to geek around and put OpenXR stack on it. You can try to flash to a FireWire. It's really challenging. And there are for example, the OpenHMD group that is working on this, but it's really difficult. So you can also just say no to the Quest. You can say, I want an entirely open source platform. There are some startups doing this. I forgot which ones, but it's possible to use it. So you can use SideQuest. So the question basically boils down: do you want the entire stack to be open source? Ideally, yes, and in practice, you'll have to do with what you can. So this is the whole goal. There is a conference called not OpenXR, but FOSXR. I was there in Amsterdam 6 months ago, more or less, which is basically saying, yes, let's try to have the entire stack open source, but it's really challenging. So in the end, you might want to just focus on whatever part you can get to be open source. Who to contact to apply? You can contact me. You can also go on the UNICEF Innovation Fund website, and there will be all the details there. What to do if we're in a country where there is no UNICEF office? So, well, that depends. Basically, if it's because it's in the, let's say in Belgium, because there was an estimation, there was no need for it. Just if you have any doubt, get in touch with me. I put back again the Twitter handle there. You can find me here or on LinkedIn. That works. But if basically you're in a country like Belgium, most likely, as I mentioned during the talk, we can help, but just not with the Innovation Fund. The fund is really specific to developing countries. What do you think has been holding up WebXR adoption? So that's an easy one. It's that building for the web. When you ship to the web, you ship to potentially billions and billions of devices. So it's not the same. When you do specifications, you have this first HTML web page from the CERN in Switzerland that is still working to this day. So when you build for the web, you want to be able to have it 20, 30 years later and across all platforms. So you cannot ship specification in weeks. Now the specifications, which is a public decision, you can take part of it, are basically concluding, and all browsers are supporting it except a few, like I said, except Safari for Apple, to name it. But it's there because the group is there. So I think that was the main challenge. So UNICEF is also involved in gender equity. The startups that work in this field can also apply, even if it's not directly linked to children. Well, potentially, yes. So just so you know, we have direct criteria in terms of selecting startup to help gender equity. So this is built in our selection process. But yes, if it's not directly to children, but it indirectly does help, it's possible. Would you deploy WebXR on a Quest store? Would it be just a web thing? You can't submit to the store if the WebXR. So yes, you can't submit to the store, but you don't need the store anymore. That's the whole new way to think about it. So the store is not a requirement. You just get a link and it just works. We can't have a massive WebXR running in Quest browser. Well, okay, I will not do that. For the technical question, just get in touch on Twitter. We don't have time for more, or again there. But basically, show me something that doesn't work on the web, and it will be a fun challenge to try to make it work. Thank you so much. Bye-bye, everyone. Have a lovely day. Have a great time.
Now it's time for us to welcome Homeric from PITCHBOY. Welcome, Homeric. The stage is yours.
Thank you very much, James. Good morning, everyone. I am on the process of getting the presentation set. And although we prepared yesterday, it doesn't want to work. Great.
Manage it if you have trouble.
So I will share my full screen. This one will be great. Shared, and it should appear. Tell your presenter number and which one it is. 77. Where should it be? Can you? 77. Do you have any idea where I should put these?
Oh, it's looking also.
I don't have access to the screen anymore. Okay.
What?
Now it is.
It is? Okay.
Let me put it in full screen. And we should be all good now. All right. Good morning, everyone. Or good afternoon for some of you who are in different timeline. My name is Homeric, and I'm the CEO of PITCHBOY. So before starting, I would like to thank and congrats the whole Laval virtual team and all the moderators for putting this together, because it must have been hell of a job, especially in such a short period of time. So congrats, guys. Really, really, it's amazing. We have been doing high to the far and doing some boat rides, and the whole team has been joining me for this. So it's a great way to support for team building. Now jumping into topics, jumping into the topic. So our job at PITCHBOY is to turning knowledge into skills. And this is an amazing journey. What we decided to create actually is the first conversation simulator. And to do that, we are based on two sides of technologies. The first one is immersion. This is the reason why I'm here today. And the second one is when you combine VR or web VR with natural language understanding, you create an interaction. And combining immersion and interaction really, really creates huge value, both for learners and for users on general speaking. So as you've seen, the immersive conversation simulator, it's like a training room. It's like a private gym for your brain. And in this training room, we have a platform that allows you to broadcast the simulations and analyze the results. But also later this year, we will release our new product, which is an authoring tool. And this authoring tool will allow you to create your own simulations and make them evolve. For now, the platform provides access to multi-device simulator. We talked earlier about web VR, so you can use it on your computer, you can use it on your phone, on any VR headset. And it can also be connected to a learning management system. It also allows you to analyze the results you obtain in real time and benefit from a personalized coaching. So the simulations are available in voice only, in 360 video, in 2D video using WebVR. So you have access to your simulation anytime, anywhere, and from any device. So basically your gym is now open 24/7, 7 days a week. So it's pretty efficient. Our PITCHBOY, our particular focus is on micro learning. And the short presentations are like 8 to 10 minutes to really immerse you. And due to the learning by doing, you finally have the right to make mistakes, and it automatically removes the fear of judgment, especially in front of an audience like what I'm doing right now. So how does it work? Our value added is really on technology. So what we developed is now called NLU, for natural language understanding. And how it works really is whatever you say is translated into text. And then PITCHBOY algorithm will analyze everything you say in real time. So what you said, how, in what context, and respond to you with the most accurate video or audio sequence. So talking about the use cases, because that's really what matters, our focus is to enable employees and users to be supported throughout their journey. So if you are in a company, you have different steps. So the first one is recruitment and onboarding. So it can be also including the initial training and during your entire development phases. So either you are in sales, you're in management, all of these works. And to generate, sorry. And what we very, very quickly realized, and the reason why I'm talking today, it's all the topics that we've been working on related to awareness. Because when you have awareness raising topics and you combine these with immersion and then recreate interactions, you can actually leave a situation just like in real life. And this is pretty amazing. So to generate empathy and awareness, we call it embodiment. And this is the most effective way to train or to feel something out of real life. So this is what we've done with Product TIO. I will talk about it right after, and it's related to youth radicalization. Lately, our team in Paris and our team in New York, they've been working on a sexual harassment scenario where you will put yourself in the victim's shoes, meaning that you will be sexually harassed, but you will also have to face the bully and talk to him. And based on how you will react, what you will say, how you will be living, the different occurrences based on how you do interact. So if you're interested about this topic, let me know. Do not hesitate, because we want to make this global and very accessible to as many people as possible. So now let's go back to Project TIO. In this specific scenario, so you see a 360 video, you are in TIO's room, which is a perfect teenager room. And you are in the shoes of TIO's mother. To give you a little bit of context, TIO has lost his father and he's looking for answers. And he believes that he may find them in religion. So to create this scenario, which is very, very touchy, not only politically speaking, but in all the ways society can be judging such kind of scenario, we worked with experts on the matter to really have something as accurate as possible in the process. So we used emotions to impact memorization, mostly negative emotions, such as TIO reactions. Let's say you might be talking to him nicely, but if he thinks that he's bothering you, you are bothering him, he might be reacting in a very teenager way, a bit overreacting. And you will feel that as you are in the scene. So the learning by doing helps you create appropriation for good reflexes. At the end of the simulation, based on your attitude, on what you said, what you didn't say, how you say what you said, TIO decides to stay or to leave. And I can promise you that when you do it for the first time and you do not succeed at keeping your son with you, you do feel something, like you feel really hurt and really badly. So to respect a certain methodology, despite the context of the scenario, we choose to use the AGES methodology. So I will be talking a little bit more about this topic, which is really key, especially for all of you working in the learning and development space. So the situation, the AGES methodology has emerged very recently, like in the 2010, from a group of neuroscientists from the Neuro Leadership Institute. And it's based on 4 key elements for learning. First one is attention. Because fixing your attention is becoming more and more difficult because we're overloaded with information. The AGES model even speak about infobesity. You always receive so much advertisement, so much disturbance. The great thing is, like, in an immersive solution, your attention is captured 100%. So you're in an immersive environment, no one can interrupt you. And that's why WebVR is key for PITCHBOY, because it allows the simulation to be fully immersive and more easily available for people who do not have VR equipment, like do it on a computer, for example. Either you do it in VR or in WebVR. In both cases, your attention will be captured because the training is short, it's interactive, and in an environment that you're familiar with. So it's a reproduction of your working environment. The second key element is generation. So you generate direct and multiple interactions with educational activities that bring reflection. Well, I cannot ask this question, but I'm pretty sure that many of you know Edgar Dale pyramid was developed in the 40s. And what Dale shown us is that we retain 90% of what we do versus only 10% of what we passively hear. So sadly for me, you will only remember 10% of what I'm saying right now. Life is tough. And this is why the learning by doing is so trendy right now, actually. What we are doing has to be stimulating. It has to be modeling. We all want to live an experience. And the simulation integrated with a conversation is designed for you to do, for you to speak, and to practice just like in real life. Okay, moving forward, the third key element is emotion. When something has chosen to trigger an emotion, we make additional connection in our brains that strengthen it. If I take, for example, 9/11, it was a very strong emotional event. It was a negative one, that's for sure. And yet, if you think about it, we all remember what we're doing on that specific day. So when a training session triggers strong emotions, the learners establish stronger association. It's like in marketing. Oh. Yes, James? 5 more minutes. Okay. It's like in marketing when we use basic emotions like surprise, joy, and fear. So what PITCHBOY simulations allow you is to generate surprise, curiosity, and pleasure. One book I recommend, it's Dan Ariely, who is a professor of psychology and behavioral economics. He wrote a book called Irrationally Yours. And what he said is, we tend to make decisions with our emotional brain and then justify with our rational brain. So moving quicker, spacing. So spacing means sequencing. Learning in large quantities over a short period of time has proven its limits. We can't stay focused in, and that's why James is telling me to go faster or to cut the presentation. So progressive learning is essential. And the best way to do that is to have short, varied, and spaced in time and repeatable simulation. So our recommendation is always to do between 5 to 10 minutes. So this way you can easily reproduce over time. Talking about data, which is also a very trendy topic, the platform we developed will gather a lot of data for after the training. So the learner can analyze his own performance, track his progress, and access his replay. On the manager perspective, he can support his team because he follows the skills development of each individual and be more effective as a manager and as we call the manager coach. And finally, the learning and development department can measure the effectiveness of the training and identify the need for the future ones, which bring me to a key element and almost the last slide, I promise. With the data we collect, we can adapt your actions. You can adapt actually your actions. So you can define what will be the most accurate future training courses and also the organization of your teams by relying on the champion, for example. But you can also, and this is really, really important, you can measure the return on investment of the training. So the training department becomes a profit center and it's no longer a cost center. This is really, really, really key. So now I can speed up this part, just how we work with training centers, how we work with companies. It takes 3 to 4 months to create an entire simulation. The blue sections are the ones that are done by our team internally, so the preparation, the post-production, the technical integrations. And the green parts are those that we do in collaboration with our partner participation. So the brainstorming, the writing for the scenario, the shooting, and then the testing. One question that we have a lot, so we like to abort this topic right away. So we told you it takes 3 to 4 months, and the budget, it starts at 16,800. And that's pretty much all of it. Now I'm all yours to answer questions. Thank you very much. I can make the same suggestion, which is to use the chat if you want to ask questions, and this way I can pick directly the questions, like you did with Fabien.
And if you want, you can also raise your hand, and we'll take also the question from the audience.
So a question for Ethan. Did you base your learning simulations on psychology studies triggers emotion, for example, the talking to teenager scenario or the harassment scenario? So yes, totally. When we work in those scenarios which are more related to diversity or sensibilization, we can reach a very large audience. What I mean is like out of the scope of the company. We do work with experts on the matters, because you don't want, if you trigger a negative emotion, you want it to be impactful, but you don't want it to have a negative impact on the learner on the time further. So yeah, and we're always looking for more and more experts. This is one of the reasons why we're also creating our authoring tool. This way experts can showcase and use it for their own studies at the same time. So a question for Alexi, you mentioned Edgar Dale Cone of Learning. The study is 50 years old. Do you know if you have a recent written on the subject? You are totally right. It was in the 40s. The reason why we use it, it's more to showcase. All the studies actually have been, of course, going deeper, but all the studies show that in any case, the fact that doing something improves dramatically your learning experience in comparison with the fact of reading something or listening to someone. So what is really key is not so much what can challenge the entire Edgar Dale cone of learning, but mostly what studies go around about what is the length for a simulation to be really effective, how should you trigger to create real emotions or attentions, and that's really key. Question from Jerza, what type of company do you usually work with? Our strength so far is working with companies related to who do have a strong customer relationship or sales departments, everything where you have to have a discussion. So it can be over the phone and face-to-face. So a company we work with is like Bouygues, it's like the Bread, LVMH, Nespresso, and all these companies that do, where their employees do have to face a large audience of clients face-to-face or over the phone. Question from Thomas, what work have you done for learning simulations and people with disabilities? So far, we haven't. This is something we really want to. The thing that is been challenging for us, well, it's that we are very busy, but this is great. It's that when you want to work on topics related to disabilities, you need to have a solution which responds to certain criteria. And so far, we haven't did this adaptation. Question from Phibos, how do you achieve immersion, 360 videos and so on? Yes, so indeed, 360 video through WebVR, or when the simulation has to do over the phone, we can even simulate a phone conversation. And either you do it in VR, so you might reproduce the working environment of the person, or we can also do it in 2D. It's less immersive, but the fact that when you talk, your computer responds to you in a very natural way, that still recreates kind of an immersion. We are VR One Singapore. What challenge have come across with companies adopting your solutions? Well, one challenge that we haven't thought of is actually the poor internet connection available in companies. So when you are in the headquarters, that works great. But when you are in the store, there is very limited bandwidth. So how we solve this solution is by preloading the videos. This way you just have a very small request of bandwidth to analyze the voice in real time. And I see one last pop-up from Emma. Can we get these slides with a link? If you go to my LinkedIn page, you actually have a generic presentation on SlideShare, but I will share, of course, the slides to Laval Virtual, and for me, it's totally fine if they want to share it. Delphine, do you have professional in education science that work with you? Yes, indeed. We even have one of our project manager who is a psychologist, and the way we want to see the development in terms of scaling, since it's now more and more possible to understand accurately foreign languages, any type, we want to work closely with with training centers and allow them to create their own simulations. This way we can go back to tech and focus on improving the solution where the instructional design expertise remains on their end. Convince the client that is a good solution, not bandwidth. Well, so far, I don't want to seem pretentious, but since there is no equivalence, it might be challenging. We need to work on our side in terms of marketing and how we present the solution. But as soon as a prospect or a client tries it, he understands the value added for him. And that's why within 1 year, we have signed with 15 large corporations to create tailored scenarios. Warren, who is in our team, has been sharing some information. If you want a demo, I'm thinking maybe we are VR1 Singapore, feel free. And yeah, if you have more questions, please let me know. I will be also participating in the panel later on. So I got back the control of my avatar. Wonderful. Thank you very much, everyone. And I hope you learned interesting things. Thanks.
Perfect timing, Homeric.
Yes.
And there was no pressure. I was just informing you.
I sit and I don't move anymore.
Okay, now thank you so much, Homeric.
Oh, if I can just, sorry, James, if I can say one thing, if you have any companies or anyone who has specific skills related to the topics that Fabien addressed earlier, will be very, very interesting and very keen to put our technology available to create actually simulations which will be used for development countries to give them access to education, to give them access to technology, to training. We can provide not the instructional design, not the expertise for education, but if we combine it with your expertise in education, our company, and Fabien skills, I'm pretty sure we can do something amazing at very, very low cost. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Homeric. So now we're happy to welcome Géraldine PERRIGUEY from XR Pedagogy. Welcome, Géraldine.
Hello, thank you. I don't know, can you hear me well? Yes. Voilà. Okay. I'm gonna try it. Hello, everyone. Are you all here and happy? Thank you very much. Okay. So James, do I have to upload
James, feel
my
free to kick me out.
presentation?
Yes.
Tom is uploading your presentation.
Okay, great. So I don't need to do anything, it will be all made. Okay, everyone, can you all hear me very well?
Yes.
Oh, I see some people that I know. Thank you for coming.
Almost done.
Okay, yes, it's fine. They give me the time to prepare also myself. Okay. You let me know, James, when it's fine for you.
I think it's okay. If you don't see the slide right now in the audience, please refresh the main screen to see the slides.
Okay, please give me some nice smiley, some emojis to tell me everything is fine for you and you are here. Yeah, nice. Thank you. All good. Okay, great. Okay, we're good to go. Is it good for you, James? Fine?
Yeah, I think it's good. That's perfect.
Okay. Okay, we're gonna start then. So, there we go. So, hello everyone. So I'm the CEO and founder of XR Pedagogy, and my name is Géraldine PERRIGUEY. I graduated with a university degree in virtual reality applied to psychology at the University of Paris-Descartes. And here you have my email address, so feel free to email me or contact me so you can take a screenshot, I think, if it's working, if you actually see the slide. I think there is an auto run with the slide, but okay. So this little guy that you see here is Goji, the mascot of my company. And we believe that VR, AR, and MR should be easy to use for a teacher and a homeschooler. Yes, I see slides are going crazy, apparently. And our goal is to provide online courses for teachers and parents of homeschooler to help them feel comfortable to use XR technologies. So we aim to master the specificity of the pedagogy in XR to encourage students to design projects in the real world thanks to what they experimented or learned in the virtual world. So, okay, I go next slide, great. And today I'm speaking from my home and I'm living on a small French island in the Caribbean Sea called Guadeloupe, and it's 6 a.m. right now. And like many other islands, we are prone to floods, volcanic risk, earthquakes, tsunami, ground movement, and hurricanes. And well, when I first moved in Guadeloupe, I arrived at the beginning of the hurricane season in June. And my husband and I, we thought we should look for information about hurricane preparedness. But you know, we were looking for a flat, and from one Airbnb to another, we put this task aside. So hurricanes are massive storm systems that form over warm ocean waters and move toward lands. And potential threats from hurricanes include powerful winds, heavy rainfall, storm surge, coastal and... yes, Stephen?
Ouais, c'est ça.
Okay, well, I keep going. I hear some sounds, but I keep going. So, we end up doing that task and we bought water supply, food and everything. But one day, a video hit me in the face. And it was in September 2019, and Hurricane Dorian struck the Bahamas. And in this video, I seen a mother on Twitter, and she was in her flooded bathroom, praying from the deep of her heart with her kid, asking God to save her. And Bahamas are like 1 hour flight from Guadeloupe. So Dorian has just passed next to us a few days before, but we were protected by sand clouds that time. And this day, after watching this video, I've understood what is risk perception and how much I had underestimated hurricane risk myself. So one of our projects with XR Pedagogy was to develop a VR-based training for hurricane preparedness. And we focused on teenagers from Guadeloupe and studied the denial of the hurricane risk. And today I'm going to speak about the use of VR to prepare young people for natural disaster. And I will take the example of our project and share what we learned so far working on hurricane preparedness in VR. Okay, I think the slide is going faster than I. That's okay. I'm going back. So James, can you check the slide? Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay.
I think from the people from the audience, you just need to refresh once, and you see the arrow, just press on one click. It's okay. It's just the time for it to load.
Okay, so I need to refresh the presentation tool.
So it's for the audience that I said for them to refresh.
Okay, fine. Okay, so in this project, we work on describing how can we use virtual reality to teach teenagers to prepare for hurricane. So it's a serious game, and the player starts the game in his or her house. So I don't know if you can see this good slide, but we can see the slide in the slide house. And when the player starts, he receives a Facebook notification mentioning it's a yellow alert for hurricane. So the player must complete multiple challenges, like find some water, find battery before the hurricane arrives in order to win. And we emphasized the psychological aspect to help young people to overcome the denial of risk. And I also did this VR game as a final project for my degree. And I wanted really to thank the University of Descartes and Pascal Piolino Lab for their help. They're doing a very good training. If you're interested in psychology applied to virtual reality, get in touch with them. So this is the context of this game. Okay, I can't see at all my slide. Okay. I'm sorry for the little waiting. I want to make sure that everything is working properly. I'm going to try to refresh. Because James, I can't see my slide neither. I don't know if it's working well.
Someone's checking everything during your talk.
Okay, it's back. Okay, before designing our environment, we wanted to understand how young people are prepared for hurricane today in Guadeloupe. So we're very lucky. We had the opportunity to interview one of our regional public safety manager, Mrs. Debriel. And among Guadeloupean teenagers, there is no compulsory preparation, as far as I know, unless it has changed since this summer. It's the academies that will decide to organize awareness exercises. So the preparation efforts are mainly based on 4 classic educational content methods, which are the distribution of leaflets, reminding the precaution to be followed in the event of a hurricane alert, continuous publication of posts on social network on the official public prefecture Facebook page, videos on YouTube in French, both in French and Guadeloupean Creole, and oral explanation proposed by the teaching staff during class hours. So all these approaches have been established for a long time and are valid from an educational point of view, but it may lack few ingredients. It's okay if it's a black screen. I hope it will be back. So the question I wonder is, why not using VR? Why VR could be a great opportunity for disaster preparedness? So virtual reality environments appear promising in its ability to bridge the gaps of other commonly established training formats. So there are 3 areas where VR could be considered as an opportunity for disaster preparedness, which are learning, what I would call dangerous situation, and what I would say investment. So if you've been to other events in Laval, you really have to have many explanation about the potential of VR for learning. Of course, motivation and engagement are particularly improved in a virtual environment, especially by integrating gamification. And VR would make it possible to segment and simplify learning to make it easier. It introduces an original flexibility and the possibility of presenting information to the learner in multiple formats and point of view. And I would say immersion itself is a learning catalyst. Also, mistakes can take a real pedagogical status. VR make it possible to observe consequences and by supporting several ways of explaining it. But most of all, VR allows the introduction of the body in the learning process. Regarding dangerous situation, application based on VR can provide regarding dangerous situation, VR is an extraordinary tool to place someone in situation when the real situation does not allow it because it's too dangerous. For many years, this potential of VR has been used, for example, to simulate interventions on nuclear reactor, for instance. And the player is faced with critical or even extreme tasks that are safe for himself or for others. And that's a real potential of VR, especially when you speak about hurricanes preparedness. VR will allow learner to gain some experience in the virtual with graduation of conditions, simulating rare scenarios. So as regards investments, I believe application based on VR can provide a coherent multi-region and synchronous multi-organization training. And it could help improve the multi-organization coordination. And I believe that the investment is reasonable now in both time and resource required. And this training is very scalable alternative. So I've told you how much myself I underestimated the risk and how much my perception of risk was altered when I moved in Guadeloupe. So I've asked myself, how could we use VR to impact the risk perception? And okay, I'm just wonder if the slides are back eventually, James?
Yes, they're back, and Tristan is streaming at the same time your slides, so if you push the next one,
okay,
we'll see
great.
them in the meantime.
Okay,
the link directly on the chat.
Okay, I can't see them. Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, it's all working.
Okay, great. So, I'm back. Et voilà. So you see in this figure, the hazard to action chain proposed by Gisela Waschinger and her team. So she's a great researcher, and you see that people with high risk perception are more likely to undertake preparedness measures and take personal action. So, however, the model is much more complex, and there are multiple external variables that are more likely to interact. Otherwise, it would be very simple to prepare people to take action. So, variables that can impact risk perception are education, experience, direct or indirect, trust and responsibility, economic ability. And Waschinger and her team show that experience and trust in authority seems to have the most substantial impact on risk perception and willingness to take action. So if you see the chain to action. And another researcher, Kevin Ronan, is a researcher from New Zealand. And Ronan investigated the risk perception and preparedness in a sample of 440 area school children. Using a risk perception and preparedness-based survey. And what it shows that children with more unrealistic risk perception were found to demonstrate a decreased belief in their ability to cope with a future hazard and a reduced awareness of hazard-related protective behaviors compared to children with more realistic risk perception. So I think there is an emergency to work on children's risk perception using VR. And we believe that VR training could impact risk perception both directly and indirectly, and also the whole chain of action leading children to take action. Okay, so we therefore defined two hypotheses. Our first hypothesis were VR training to prepare young people for hurricanes could facilitate learning and memorization of key knowledges. And our second hypothesis was that VR training could impact risk perception and lessen denial of danger, which is an extreme version of risk perception. And VR could be an opportunity to guide this teenager in facing their ambivalence toward their perception of the reality of the cyclonic risk. So VR is a medium for exploration and experimentation, and you have to know how to arouse the curiosity of the user and adapt the content to the media. And to build our environment, we develop a user-centric approach by putting the learner in the position of co-builder of the virtual environment. We work with teenagers from Guadeloupe as consultants, and we did brainstorming to imagine what could be an exciting environment to prepare to hurricane. And we have very nice brainstorming. They arrive with a lot of super cool idea and so on. But this brings me to another important challenge. When considering to use VR to prepare young people for natural disaster, you have to consider the level of realism. Okay, go next slide. So when using VR for disaster preparedness, the question of realism must be specified and argued. Realism of what in relation to which situation, object, and description of reference for which objectives. Indeed, the crucial objectives concern the fidelity of the expected learning behaviors of the user and the achievement of the training objectives. So I think it's a balance we must find between a realism through design and what are actually the best clues that could be identified by our targeted user to perceive risk. So we use an empathy map as a tool to map these clues according to teenagers who actually experimented on hurricanes. So you can see this map, it's in French, but an empathy map covers 7 items to emphasize this user. It's a really common tool. So we work with a teenager and we ask them to tell us when they were experimented on a hurricane, what do they remember they see, they hear, what do they did, etc. And what do they think the player should see, should hear, to have this clue all map for us to design the environment. Okay, I go next slide. So in Guadeloupe, there are 5 levels of alerts and 50 tasks. So we faced a problem, how can we design the different scenarios? So in Guadeloupe, the alert level depends on the proximity of the cyclone from Guadeloupe. The closer it gets, the more the risk increase from yellow to gray, as you can see. And here on the top are the leaflets distributed in Guadeloupe and explaining the task to remember. So we wondered how to translate this task into our game. Who are we to decide how to prioritize this task compared to other tasks? Can we translate this task into our serious game? So a few tasks were similar and were reminded multiple times, but some tasks were very specific, like tidy the garden to ensure nothing could be projected into the window. So at this level of our development, we have not yet solved that problem, and we need to work on that part, requesting help of experts in designing educational content and risk manager expert in hurricane risk. But this was to share with you some of the challenges, if you want, some of the challenges if you want to use VR for natural disaster. Okay, change slide. So here is the player overall progression, and in this figure, I show that those players start and it's yellow alert. And I show two situations, what I call the reward system, and the second situation is the feedback system. So in the reward system on the left, imagine the player completes all the challenge in the yellow alerts, finding water supply, food supply, battery, radio station, flashlights. Every time the player wins points. And meantime, automatically the level of alert is changing. For now, we thought about every 5 minutes for our VR version to ensure the player won't spend more than 20 minutes in the game. Okay, now the second situation, the feedback system. So here in the square, you see that the player hasn't completed all the challenges before the red alerts turn violet and loses. So when the player loses, the idea we're working on is to find balance between visualization of consequences, giving advices and clues, and maybe showing a video of a real person interviewed who experienced a hurricane in Guadeloupe. When thinking about of visualization of consequences, we can imagine a lot of extreme details. And one of the important recommendations I could make, especially when using VR for natural disaster preparedness training, is to include ethics. A way of ensuring that the player can leave the experience anytime he wants or feel uncomfortable is to establish a code. So if the player closes his eyes or her eyes and say stop, everything stop, and you are safe again with us. Because VR can make an experience very immersive. And we are working with teenagers. Because I remember one day a company wanted to show me some virtual content, and they built to work on psychology aspect. I volunteered without thinking it could be risky, and that made me try a random experience which was to work on acrophobia, altitude phobia. But I did have this phobia, and it was a horrible, stressful experience for me because I couldn't think that taking off my the HMD would take me off the experience. I was trapped in my fear. So remember to ensure that you have established a way for your user to escape. Because quite often I see VR experience where it's not easy in terms of user experience to find the exit door. And I think it's important to mention. One other aspect of our training I want to share is what I call the advantage of the neighbor. So we introduced one character, the neighbor, for two main reasons: to encourage empathy, knowledge transfer, and decrease anxiety. So it's highlighted by Laurie Pick in 2008, a sociologist, that children have considerable strengths that could serve as a significant resource for families, community, and organization. Basically, they can contribute through preparedness response and also recovery. And the idea with the neighbor is to stimulate this natural energy. We wanted the teenager to encourage the adult to take the same action, or at least the player should be able to explain what he has learned about hurricane preparedness for certain alerts. And by doing so, the neighbor could help the player for difficult tasks. And this adult representation can also decrease the anxiety of the youth. It has been proven that some prevention campaigns addressed to children generate anxiety because they place the responsibility on children to ensure their own protection. And if you want these kids, this kind of training for natural disaster preparedness to work, you need to involve the community and establish a link between adults and players. And I believe this is not really memorization of the tasks that are going to be literally improved when using VR for hurricane preparedness, but the preparation of the psychological state of our children. And that's why we insist on a link between the player and the community represented by the neighbor. So here I want to share that exposure to virtual reality is not enough. I hope you can see the figure, but the figure is not exactly our experimental design that we follow. It's a simplified version. What I want to share is that exposure to VR content is not enough to teach something properly in VR. Learning is a complex process that cannot be reduced to mere exposure to virtual content. It's necessary to define the different components of the use of the serious game. So we've decided to build our use case, including a before, a during, and an after phase. So before exposure, it's the opportunity to explain to young people what they're about to experiment. VR can have psychological effects that last after leaving the virtual environment. So environment can influence one's psychological state. So if you wish also to measure impact on task memorization, the before phase is the occasion to ask a participant to take a survey. So we took it for the risk perception survey. But once they clearly understand the purpose and the code to stop everything, and once you've collected consent forms, of course, your participants are ready for VR experience. So when the exposure to the VR-based training starts, it's important to help the user at the beginning, confirm presence, and check the player's psychological state, because getting to know VR-based app can challenge some users. So I believe it's important at the beginning to really check with them how they feel, how they are. You'll have what we call the wow effect, but some player can feel also better if they feel someone is here for them. And after exposure, you can take survey to measure effect of the environment, but most of all, keep some time to let them share their emotion and help them find words to describe the emotion they had. So I think the debrief is how we can train psychologically young people to natural disaster by helping them cope with their emotion, even if these emotions were virtually induced. After the VR exposure, it's also a good momentum to give them a leaflet so they will be able to share what they've learned with their family. And ideally, we'd like to measure risk perception as skills acquired, but we also thought about heart rate and dermal response to assess anxiety and physical response to exposure of the environment. Okay. So to conclude, VR is a great opportunity to prepare young people for natural disaster. And application based on VR can provide coherent multi-region and synchronous multi-organization training. It could offer to young people a higher level of realism and immersion compared to classroom instruction and online teaching materials. And above all, they can address the perception of risk or even denial of danger. Remember that the more aware a child is of the real danger and risk, the more likely it is that adults will be educated through the child's sharings of knowledge at home, as argued by Ronan, researcher in 2001. So I'll conclude to finish. Make sure you avoid natural disaster in reality, but learn everything to get ready in virtual reality. Thank you very much. Thank you. I think I'm gonna take a question. Thank you.
Yes, please. Do you have any questions? Yeah, there's a question already.
Okay, great.
From Tiffen Deligny.
Okay.
The chat. In your experience, have you included collective reactions like crowd movements?
So for now, I include a few characters because the idea was to test in a simple environment because there are lots of variables that are going to influence our study. And yes, we want a few characters to maybe run and to give clues to the player that the alert is increasing. So, but we don't want to have too many characters because I think the idea is really to focus on risk perception, and it's already a very complex environment. So yes, we include some characters and that will participate to make understand and give clues that the level of alert is changing. I don't know if I'm answering well the question. Okay, any other question?
Say yes, thanks.
See from Hatja, how do you let kids participate? I'm sorry, there's lots of questions and I can't see. James, can you help me on that part?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. So Arja from here asks, how do you let kids participate who do not underestimate the risk but are afraid of it?
Okay, so how do they not underestimate? Well, the idea is actually to work exactly on their perception. In terms of participation, we offer them the possibility to participate, but it's really, for the moment, I haven't worked with the local institution to actually organize something in school and so on. But right now, we ask them if they want to participate, and we were about to start a big round when the COVID crisis starts, so we all pause that experiment for the moment. And yes, they will take a risk perception survey before, and that is really well described in research. And we will assess what is our level of risk perception level, what is their risk perception level before, and after playing with the game, how this risk perception changed. Thank you for your question. I found that really, really interesting. Okay, James, is there no other question?
Yes, there's a question from Clotilde Dubernay. Have you ever thought of adding the olfactory dimension to your experience?
Of course, I would love it. I think the more senses are involved, the better the immersion would be. I also think about adding winds or stuff like that to make sure that all your body is involved in the process. My real question is like when it is too much, and as I mentioned, when could I say that it's actually too immersive? Because when you experiment a hurricane in real life, it is violent, it is strong, and this is not, we don't want to induce fear, you know, we just want to immerse them. So at the same time, I want to add a lot of you know, senses involved. I want the return haptic, maybe return. I want all the senses, as much as senses should be involved, but at the same time, I don't want it to be too much because I don't want to induce fear. I just want to make sure that actually the perception of risk is correctly established.
Okay, so I see that there are still other questions. If you don't mind, we're about to start the panel. So if you're okay with that, you can come over after the panel and discuss directly with Géraldine, or maybe Géraldine, you can answer directly in the chat. Before switching to the panel, knowing that it's almost the last conference of the day, are you all okay if we take a big selfie all together with the speakers,
Yes.
Fabien, of course, the host, and the audience? Please raise your hands.
Great idea.
Of course, let's take a selfie.
Yes, what a great idea. Thank you for waiting, Fabien.
No worries. So, how do we do this? Do we?
Okay, I'm gonna try to change view.
Please come, Phil.
Hey,
Tristan is about to take the picture, and all of us. Huh?
come on, guys, in the audience, it's time to show us you're here. Very nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Hi, Charlie. Yeah.
C'est Jen, c'est toi qui as pris la photo?
Tristan l'a pris.
Tristan, superbe.
Picture.
Oops, sorry. Pardon, Géraldine.
It's okay.
Martinique de mon côté.
I have to do that.
C'est parti.
Everybody is dancing.
This is a nice way to start. Wow.
Okay. I'll be the one to stop all this fun.
Okay.
Yes.
We do have a panel.
Thank you for everybody.
I think it's the funniest conference I never met.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Awesome.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thanks
to all of you. And let's go back to the panel. The final discussion. Panel.
Wonderful.
So you can go back, have a seat, everyone, but don't leave. Huh? This is
Géraldine?
Yes.
Je t'ai envoyé un petit message sur LinkedIn. Moi, je suis de Martinique.
Ok, bienvenue à la Martinique. Avec
Ouais,
plaisir.
enfin, je suis en France depuis presque 15 ans maintenant. Et voilà, j'étais parmi les premiers en réalité virtuelle avec
Ok.
donc on en discutera sur LinkedIn.
Avec plaisir, avec plaisir. On va juste commencer le panel pour respecter le
pardon,
timing.
j'avais pas vu.
Avec plaisir.
Okay, thank you all. So let's get back to the final panel. Fabien, please take the lead.
Yes. I think is everybody there? Yes, we're all good. We're good to go. Okay, super. Thanks, everyone. So we'll do the panel. The dancing was great. And I think it's good also to do. I mean, it's a pretty serious topic in the end. We came here for good, basically, for a good cause, and sometimes it can be a little bit heavy, so I think it's great sometimes to just relax and enjoy, and remember also we do this to be happier together, so that's great. I will do a quick, I'll suggest everybody actually, so Géraldine, sorry, but you will do a quick introduction, very short since you already introduced yourself a bit, please. Can you tell us again who you are, Géraldine?
Okay, yes, I can do that. So for those who were not here just before, my name is Géraldine PERRIGUEY, and I'm the CEO and founder of XR Pedagogy. And our goal is to provide online courses for teachers and parents of homeschoolers to help them feel comfortable to use XR technologies.
Perfect, thank you so much. Homeric also, since you gave a presentation, if you don't mind to keep it to a minute or so, that would be great. Can you tell us again a bit who you are, what you work for?
Of course. So my name is Homeric and I am the CEO of PITCHBOY. What we do is that we combine web VR technologies with voice recognition to create immersive and interactive environments so users can train and grow their skills.
Super, thank you so much, perfect. And then Philippe, so Philippe, you did not have any other presentation, so if you can introduce yourself, also tell us who you are, what you work for. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So hi everyone, I try to be short, but my background is I'm a software engineer. I used to work on open source project for big corporation like Intel or Samsung. And now I'm a contributor of a Mozilla community, and I'm still open for cooperation. What I can explain about shortly is my relevant research on how to do Internet of Things with privacy, because I wanted to address some recommendation of the regulations, GDPR, recommending a privacy by design system. So from this, I made some contribution to the Mozilla WebSync platform, which is a framework for smart home use cases and preventing any data leaks. That's one of the big concerns Mozilla tried to address. So from this, I started to push forward some concepts, melting physical and virtual interaction. So we call this today as digital twins. And yeah, I can show you a couple of pack I made just yesterday. So
sure, if you can load it quickly, and then we can get a more concrete view.
Browser?
Yeah. Think everybody can see the slides?
The pictures. Yeah.
Yeah.
See them?
If we can see them.
So can you tell us a little bit what we're seeing, what it means?
Yeah, sure. So what you can see in the middle of this picture is just a Uber robot, this kind of 4 wheels you have on planet Mars or elsewhere. So this device is a virtual, but it's actually updated from a real device. I have hacked somewhere. Okay, so this Lego toy. So yeah, this is a Raspberry Pi, is one of the famous computer you can find for super cheap, and there is some sensor on top of it. So when this device is rotated, the same device is rotated in the VR world. So what we are using here is
I think we lost you there. Philippe?
Yes, I'm still here.
Yeah.
Cannot hear me anymore?
Now it's okay.
So widget is bugged. Okay, so what I'm trying to show at the last part, the sensor is actually just a number which is connected to a platform and then exposed to the outside for integration between another application. So yeah, what I'm going to speak today is about the strength of open source for interoperability, privacy, and so on. I think I'm done, and now.
Super, thank you. Thank you so much. Then I will do another round, basically. So, because we might have another philosophy professor, but I think it's interesting to define terms. So, Géraldine, if you want to start again, what is for you then the definition of VR for the cause?
Yes, good question. For me, as I develop VR-based training for disaster preparedness in Caribbean teenager, I think VR for cause would be defined as a great tool for preparation. It's all about preparation of psychological state when facing something as unique. And I think right now with the actual situation, VR for a cause could be a great support. And I think the possibility also, VR is a possibility to ensure that we can still interact and co-build solutions together. Because you see right now, everyone has to stay home. But thanks to tools like Virbela or other tools like Outspace VR or Engage and so on, we can actually be together and build and co-build solutions together. So I don't know if it's a great answer for definition for VR for a cause, but for me, it's linking people together, VR for a cause.
So that if I want to rephrase it, the collaboration aspect that is really, I mean, in general, but especially on those times, can bring the most added value. That makes sense?
Yes. Yes. Exactly.
Thank you. And Homeric, do you want to compare a little bit your view to this? Do you think there is more than collaboration? Where do you think VR for the cause has the biggest impact?
For me, there is no question if we should or not create use cases around diversity or use VR for a cause, because it's a must. But I see VR as a media, and in this aspect, in this respect, I think the great thing with VR is that you can reproduce.
Make it evolve them in parallel. Yeah, that's my vision. Yeah.
Thank you.
Maybe I can add something is tools like Zoom or Skype are great tools if you want to collaborate and you can't actually meet because you're in the same place. But when you start to become a larger group, it's really difficult to work together. And I think everyone experimented that today. And VR tool allow the possibility for larger group to interact together. And as an example, in Guadeloupe, we have local communities, and we build a group called the Reflex Week. So our aim is to help a local population to get ready, and doing that, we have this possibility to use a lot of technological tools that right now are easy to access. So I think VR for a cause, it's interesting to mention that it allows the possibility of local action. It allows citizens to take action, to work together, to create value, where before very advanced technology were only for a big company or experts. Or right now, like, everyone can actually step into VR and start to build something that creates value for the local community.
So there is a very important democratization aspect, let's say. It was 100,000 euros or dollar 10 years ago or more, then it went down to 1,000 euros more or less, and now it's a few hundreds. So this is also what can help to have impact, just the democratization of the tech.
Yes. And you can use a mobile phone, you can use a cardboard, you can use a head-mounted device, but I think it's going to be easier and easier. So it's really accessible.
Yes, and I think it's the accessibility aspect is extremely important, because if we don't pay attention to make sure the content remain accessible without needing like the state-of-the-art hardware, connection, everything, then it becomes basically elitist, and there can be a growing gap between people who use and don't the technology, who can afford, who can also have the physiology that allows it to. So I think if we want to keep on insisting on the collaborative aspect you mentioned initially, we have to remain inclusive. It's very important to not just fall forward in terms of technology adoption and without keeping those who could not or just do not for any kind of reasons stay with people who are really excited by the tech. So I think it's important to push forward in terms of state of the art, but without isolating ourselves basically and the value we can provide.
If I may add something to what you're saying, I fully agree. Although we are very dependent on those who produce the VR, the hardware, I mean. So I believe we have a responsibility as content producer to make it available and accessible to a larger majority. And although at PITCHBOY today, all our clients are large corporations, when we did Project TEO, actually, it was using the benefits we made with large corporations. So the simulation can be made available to 2,500 schools across France for free. And we distributed to all the schools that were available, that were interested, cardboards as well for free. So since we can have so much impact on how Microsoft or Facebook or all those big players are creating their XR hardware, we need to find use cases that do contribute to VR for a cause.
Thank you. One of the things that was not really touched upon indeed was for the impact we can have on those big corporations. Well, it's basically regulation. Do you think there is a room there to regulate big players, big actors, and force them basically to do VR right?
No one wants to speak about this? I can give insight. Yeah, actually, regulation is sometimes slower than technology, but hopefully, a couple of years ago, Europe established the GDPR, which is giving new rights to users. So that's not something not really technical. So it's not that easy for software or software vendors to implement everything. At least it's something users can try to get benefit from. And something which is not really more detailed is the article 25 tells that the system should be the recommendation is to do this with privacy by design. So I think because first it started in Europe, now I believe in UK they made a similar regulation regarding IoT device. So this means that in the end, devices which are too invasive cannot be sold on the market. So that's something new.
On this matter, there is one book that I strongly recommend is Zooked by Roger McNamee. Roger McNamee is an early investor in Facebook, and he's the one who actually convinced Zuckerberg not to take the offer from Yahoo. So he had a tremendous impact, and he changed his mindset on Facebook when he saw what the company was becoming and what it became today, using the data and everything. So
So I don't think it is dangerous, but I think it's a responsibility we all must have, that it's okay to have a business model and to sell things, but it's also normal to make sure the person which is solicited who is clearly understand that if they don't want to buy, they will not have to buy. And I think it's a new media, and it's the great opportunity not to make the same mistakes that we did with other media in the past.
Yeah, that's encouraging. What I wanted to add about culture, that culture is about, it's not only for users, it's also for developers, also for entrepreneurs, also for public. So yeah, that's my vision, is that we can still improve in many aspects. So I believe that if we are making some new business, we are out there for users in the end, that we can expect them to take off of what is already existing today. So if you look at all the internet GAFA, they weren't beginning of the internet, so they came just after when everyone was connecting with DSL and so on. And now they're making a lot of profit, but we can expect that a new generation is pushing forward a new feature, and privacy can be one of those. Yes.
So basically, that the culture change is for all the actors involved. Both, let's say, if we discuss about children using VR to learn, that the parents who buy the device understand the consequence of, let's say, a company that has a specific business model, that the developer that you work with understand that if they use this device or that library, there might be some privacy issue. So it feels like it's a great tool that we can play with, we can work with, we can also earn money with, but we can't use it too naively, basically.
I would like to add that it's the same for many other technologies, like transportation or which is emitting too much.
Well, there are similarities, but it's different in the sense that it's your entire world. Like if you use VR, you have everything around you changes, and it's very close to it's very intimate in the end. And when you use a device with VR with inside-out tracking, it records everything, not just about your movement, but also about your own house or your bedroom or whatever it's in. So it's, of course, it has similarities with past technologies, but there are also some radical differences, I believe.
A user has to ask himself is what I'm winning using this kind of product and what am I losing. So the previous remark about educating children, about telling them what are the consequences about smoking cigarettes or about using different kind of gadgets, it can have an impact on their.
Yes, yeah, it feels like there is a lot of education is not going away for sure. We have so much to not just to each other, but to everybody who is part of the value chain.
But we try to build recommendation for parents to use VR and to make sure that the health of their children is protected. Right now, the research is controversial on the effect and the impact on children. But I would recommend not to use it before the age of 13, which is manufacturer recommendations, by the way. But most of all, it's not about age, it's more about keeping the dialogues, like make sure you discuss what are the emotions that your children experiment when using VR. Make sure you, as a parent, already try the application before your children to make sure that it's maybe your children is ready for that. So I think you can imagine the best recommendation. You can make standards and involve institutions to protect citizens. But at the end, it's also our responsibility as user to push the direction towards something which is responsible design, responsible applications.
Илюша, слышно меня?
Solution it will be used in, and use it as it best, but it's to do it in a realistic fashion. And at some point, you need to put also a lower bar to say, well, if you don't have electricity or enough electricity, or if you don't have, if you can't move your body at all, then it's going to be very difficult, and then you need to provide a solution. So for example, some of the solution were to do in classrooms, to do groups of 2 students or 2 children, and they would help each other, and one would be in VR and the other would not be in VR. Of course, it's not exactly the same impact or effect, but you still want to keep everybody involved, basically, so that you can minimize the feeling, at least, of being excluded. Does it make sense?
Yes, that does. Thank you. And how did that work on Guadeloupe? Sorry, the islands?
Géraldine?
Yes. Well, actually, we start to have a very good internet connection on the island. Still, some area is not covered, so it's like big differences, depends on where you are. But I'm not a technical expert on device, but what I understand is that when using VR, you actually need less internet bandwidth that you would need if you want to do a Skype or other thing like this. So that's one point. I think the technology will actually help. That's the limitation about internet won't be anymore. And the second point is actually, I think in terms of user experience, it can be easier to put a head-mounted device and to try VR rather than to understand how to use a keyboard, how to use a mouse, where to go, where to click, because your body is involved. And it's easier to use your hand and do something with your hand when you're in VR rather than in front of your computer. And I've noticed it with senior user as well as with very young user. So I think in terms of inclusion for user experience, for what I know, it's improving. But economically speaking, it's still an investment. And in Guadeloupe, for instance, very few people already try VR in the island, but we already have few initiatives, and entrepreneurs are building very nice. Yes, I totally agree with you, Homeric, and I want to add what I said in my previous talk, like VR exposure is not enough, and it's really, I think, a link we have to make between reality and virtuality, because VR is a great tool to encourage people to do things in reality, and is not to encourage people to hide in the virtual world. I think we need to learn things, to build things, to create nice value, and using VR is a fantastic tool for that. And then we can go in the real world and create this value. For instance, we work with a group, and we designed the virtual application. It was an augmented reality application to make children understand what they need to know in case of a tsunami emergency. And then they go in a field, running, looking for clues in the field, in the real world, a clue that we've designed ourselves, and they keep that in their bag. So my vision is that the technology must serve the reality, and technology alone is not enough. It's a complete initiative. So if you want, when we're doing research, we can include a lot and respect lots of standards in ethics standards when building our environment, but it's not compulsory. So I think it is very well described, especially for game for children, that how should we respect some ethics, but it's not because it is well described that it is well followed.
I can add something on this subject. For instance, this is not specific to XR, but mostly open source project. I know that at FOSDEM, some people presented some works like certifying that project is matching some recommendation about openness. So this means like going one step further. Somebody now that you want to audit it and to just validate it that it's good enough, like exactly something similar to what we have in the organic food, for instance, that apply to software.
It sounds like there is a lot that is can be translated from one domain to another, either from the ethics of AI to organic food and how to and have clear labels on, let's say, the products. So we can imagine when you go buy an Oculus Quest in the store, that you would have some privacy labels there, that everybody down the chain understand the ethical impact of the decision. Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you so much, everyone, both our dear panelists, Géraldine, Homeric, Philippe. Thanks to the organizer of La Vie Virtuelle, but of course to you, the crowd. Thank you so much. I think some of the panelists might stay in the room and up for a chat. Otherwise, you can hit us up online. And yeah, thanks for being there. We really believe that this is the place to be, the platform also to share what we learn and how to build together, so that VR itself is a new medium to do good. So thank you so much. Have a lovely day, rest of the conference, and we keep in touch online. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you both. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Fabien.
Thank
you very
everybody.
much.
So this is the end of the conference in the Transversal hall. So there is a keynote right now in 3 minutes, but if you want, you can stay here and have a discussion all together. And thank you for everything. That was amazing. And
Thank you, James.
Thank you, James.
Thank you, the moderator team, for all the great job helping us with everything.
Yeah, thank you so much. Now I can do my move.
Can we jump and clap?
Yes.
Like where?
Now you
Which
can
one
jump.
it is?
Yeah, look at that.
Confused.
Look at that.
Whoa.
Whoa.
F7.
And the flip also.
Yep, and this one.
That's great.
May we jump to the meeting rooms if some people want to chat further?
Yeah, sure. Sorry. Yeah, sure.
Yep.
Okay.
So let's go to the first one of the first one.
See you, and thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. We're going to vertical right now.
Yeah, everyone, if you want to discuss anything, just let me know. I think some people had some very nice questions.
So I'm going to the meeting rooms. Bye, thank you.
Okay, Agnieszka. Agnieszka, I guess you wanted to ask something?
Oui.
Ok.
Pardon, Géraldine. Ouais.
Oui, dis-moi.
Ouais, je voulais un petit peu parler avec toi.